For Britain's Liberal Democrats, the spit of land that juts out from the southwest of England into the Channel is campaign central. For years, the counties of Somerset, Devon and Cornwall have been the stronghold from which the UK's third largest party has tried to establish itself in the political mainstream. Since Nick Clegg took his party into government with the Conservatives in 2010 to form Britain's first coalition since the war, the Liberal Democrats have slumped in the polls. The fall has been so stark that even in safe seats like here in St Ives, the party now looks under threat. The Liberal Democrats secured 27% of the vote at the 2010 election. They now lie at just 7%, having taken a hammering on everything from raising tuition fees to cutting welfare spending. But party strategists believe that the Lib Dems will defy the national polls with a series of fiercely fought local campaigns in places such as St Ives in Cornwall. They hope that politicians like Andrew George, the local MP, will use their personal popularity and campaigning skills to overcome the party's national slump. Mr George has proved a regular thorn in Mr Clegg's side, voting against the government on sensitive issues such as cuts to benefits for people in social housing. Now the party hopes he can use that reputation for independence to save his seat in the face of a concerted attack by the Tories, even if it means he has to disown the Lib Dems to do so. Mr George's campaign literature barely mentions his party at all, or its unpopular leader.
I've always actually promoted, and indeed my campaign team who decide, how we're going to portray ourselves in the election, we've always, portrayed the candidate. I mean, after all, Nick Clegg or David Cameron or anyone else for that matter aren't the people who are going to represent this constituency. It's going to be the MP for the area, and it's been a tactical decision since before time itself that we've always presented the candidate and what the candidate stands for first and foremost.
This style of personal campaigning has won fans, even among former Tory voters. Steve Cox, a retired textiles teacher who lives in Penzance, always voted Conservative when younger. That was simply what people did in her area. But Mr George has won her over.
I voted for Andrew George for nearly 20 years. The reason being, he is a local person who knows what the locals are interested in, what their priorities are, and he's quite thoughtful in the way he talks to you about what he aims to try and do in Parliament, and he sort of listens to you instead of letting it go over his head like some of the politicians one has met in the past. I'm not totally devoted to the Lib Dems. I vote for Andrew because he's Andrew and he is concerned about this area. I don't vote necessarily for party politics. I vote for the person who is going to be my MP. And if he is interested in the locality and what the actual people and community think.
The Lib Dems thought that going into government would help them in seats like St Ives by persuading wavering Tories that they could be trusted in power. Instead, the decision to go into coalition has made little impact on the Tory position while splintering the Lib Dem vote. Mr George is particularly under threat from the Greens, despite attempts to negotiate a non-aggression pact with his friend, the Green MP Caroline Lucas. Tim Andrews, the Green candidate here in St Ives, is definitely not going easy on Mr George.
People are feeling very let down by the Liberal Democrats and by the coalition government generally. They're looking for an alternative, someone who's going to offer a more compassionate society and is going to take issues of the environment seriously, and the Green Party is offering that alternative.
The Tories are hoping this green surge will help them to win here in St Ives.
The Conservatives are heavily targeting constituencies like this, not least to make up for seats they expect to lose elsewhere to Labour. The latest constituency polling suggests they're in with a very good chance. Having won this seat in 2010 with a majority of 1,700 votes, Mr George is now just 1 percentage point ahead of his Tory challenger, Derek Thomas.
I'd like to be a bit ahead in the polls at this time of the election, but I think, if anything, our vote has dropped slightly since we've been in government, and so I need to work hard at getting that vote back out again. We have an issue with UKIP. We don't quite know how strong that will be. But I think the Green Party are working particularly hard, and Labour as well, who traditionally, the Liberal Democrats down here have been propped up by Labour because Labour have never had a chance of winning. They seem to have been deserting the Lib Dem candidates.
In the face of the Green threat, Mr George is stressing his own environmental credentials, hosting a series of question and answer events to talk about issues such as wind and tidal power. But he is struggling to get this message through. In part, this is because of the unpopularity of his support for shale gas extraction, known as fracking. But largely, it is because his party has spent the last 5 years in government alongside the Tories, about whom he makes such dire warnings. St Ives is renowned for its art scene, which traces its roots back to the modernists of the early 20th century. The independent spirit of communities like this was once a key factor behind Lib Dems' success in this area. But voters such as painter Sally McCabe are now turning their backs on the party.
I think that if it was a case of having to choose whether to vote Lib Dem or whether to vote for the Green Party in order to avoid the Tories being re-elected, I still think I would this time vote for the Green Party. I just believe that it's time for a change, and I think that the main parties have, by their track record, shown what they're capable of, and I'm not convinced that it's necessarily going to be right.
But being in government also has its perks. The Lib Dem MP recently claimed credit for over £1 million worth of money spent on redeveloping roads in the remote Isles of Scilly, which are reached by a 3-hour ferry from Penzance. That money was pledged by a Conservative minister who had hoped his party would reap the electoral rewards. But Mr George moved quickly to make sure he was closely associated with the project.
The Lib Dems believe they can defy the national polls and hang on in constituencies like St Ives. To do so, they will need the dogged and occasionally wily political skills of local MPs such as Andrew George. Their success will make or break the party's future. Kiran Stacey, Financial Times, St Ives.